Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. This is your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. From our studios based in Toronto, but we go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live in over 100 different countries around the world. So we are delighted that you have joined us today. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do that. We are increasing our listenership and our viewership around the world. And we certainly want you to be a part of this and make sure you spread this channel within your own networks as well. And again, thank you. We are delighted that you have joined us. We are live on StreamYard, of course, and Facebook and YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And again, thank you for joining us. Today is a very, very special day. It's really a part two of part one that we had, and it was so popular that we decided to bring our guest, Dr. Edward Ilechukwu. And since he came at that time as Dr. Edward Ilechukwu, a lot has happened over the last little while. And I had the privilege and opportunity to be invited to participate in Washington, D.C. last weekend. And now he is the Honorable Ambassador, Dr. Edward Ilechukwu. And we're so delighted that he is joining us today. We want to learn about what transpired in that meeting and what is happening as far as Africa is concerned. When we talk about the Africa that we want under the UA and the UN, the AU agendas, what is it that we want to see Africa becoming? So I'm just so delighted that you have joined us today. And I would like to have this special welcome His Excellence, Honorable Ambassador Dr. Edward Ilechukwu. Thank you for joining us today, sir. And it's good to see you again in person. I just saw you last week, and it's good to see you this week. So, sir, we're going to dive into this. Today, we really want to go deeper. Our first conversation was very popular. A lot of people really enjoyed the insights you brought and some of the things that were coming up, including what happened last week in Washington, D.C. So we'd like to pick up on that, but tell us about this new designation you received. What happened?
Thank you, Dr. Mpindu. I'm all smiles to come back to your program today again. Of course, we were delighted, for lack of a better word, to have you attend as a delegate and a speaker to our conference. You saw it for yourself. We did have from the African Union, we had the African Union ambassador to the United States, Dr. Mafuze, who spoke at the conference from Zimbabwe. We had dignitaries like the mayor of New York, who also spoke at the conference, joining us from New York. Of course, obviously, the big elephant in the room was the president of St. Martin. Yes. His Excellency Mr. Musintin, who was there for the 2 days, and who is actually his speech is causing ripples all over the place, and he has committed to working with us on every level as we speak. We do have a November conference scheduled for St. Martin's in November, which is going to bring together a couple of other Caribbean islands to participate and collaborate with GIAA. So I'm dusting off my shoes, getting ready to go to St. Martin in November. But on the sidelines, I was appointed as Special Envoy for Gender Affairs Education to the United Nations, by a private organization as an ambassador. So it's still developing. They're still developing my portfolio, but I'm excited that we are getting more platforms to speak up about Africa and what Africa is supposed to be doing at this juncture. So we're collaborating with the United Nations. I had friends from the European Union, Honorable Peter Bystrom, who was also gracing our occasion. So, we are excited. A lot of things has started coming together, business-wise, politics-wise, a lot of things. Like, I have people calling me from Uganda, from Bermuda, from all over the world, who want to collaborate. Even up until this morning, I had to tell them, hold on, I have a special radio interview that I'm going to do, and then after that we're going to continue from there. But I do thank you for having me again, Dr. Mpindu. Thank you so much.
Dr. Ilechukwu, His Excellency Ambassador Edward Ilechukwu, we're so delighted that you came back. Listen, I walked away encouraged. I was just thinking in terms of the caliber of people who were there, people who are laser focused as far as being African is concerned. And one thing I must tell you right away, and I know that Mr. TYB, who's our chief engineer here in the studio, is a Pan-Africanist, not just by association, but by nature. And we have embraced the understanding that we are not Africans because we're born in Africa, but Africa was born in us. And so I embraced a new understanding that I am not first and foremost Zimbabwean or Nigerian or Kenyan or Ghanaian, Senegalese, Zambian, China. I am African. That's who we were before we were colonized. We were Africans. Yes, we could have been in our little world, but we knew ourselves as Africans. And so I remember speaking to one of the gentlemen at the forum, and I asked him, and I said, by the way, where in Africa are you from? And he looked at me and he said, sir, I am African. I know where you're coming from, but I want you to know that I am African. At some point, we can talk about where exactly I am from, but I am passionate about wanting to make sure that Africa progresses and we see ourselves as Africans. So there's a new wave of passion that has emerged. And to be in that place, considering the amount of work you and your team invested, the kind of people you invited, the kind of discussions and speeches and the flavor that was created, it was infectious, it was powerful, it was real. And for us to have you back in the studio and to build up on this and to hear the cry that we don't want aid, we want trade. Let's be in partnerships. And I'm saying to myself, the picture that I saw, sir, and I know I'm giving my summary and overview here because I didn't have a chance to do this with you. And obviously this is important because we're archiving this and we're going to be sharing this with all kinds of people to see the diversity in terms of male, female, people who are making a difference in the world, to see people like yourself, people who went to school using the colonial language and being articulate and bringing people from all walks of life to be in this room to influence one another and say, listen, this is who we are. The world is yet to see what we are going to do. In other words, we can say, as one of my Hebrew professors used to say when I was in university, he said, you ain't seen nothing yet to put it into Hebrew. The world is yet to see what Africa is becoming and what we are going to become. And there were young people there. I sat at the table with university students who are passionate about wanting to connect with Africa. There were young people who were African American. There were young people who were African. And I'm just saying, this is exciting, sir. This is exciting. That wasn't a moment. That was a movement in the making. And when I think of what do we need to do to take it to the next level, and I'm saying, sir, you have your hands full. The agenda is right there. The AU has an agenda. The UN has an agenda. The Western world has an agenda. But what is it that is going to make a difference now moving forward? We can't continue to blame other people for who we are and what we have become. We can't do that. Enough is enough. We have people who are emerging, younger people. I'm saying this passionately because I just came across an interesting video from an 8-year-old who says, if I had an opportunity to go to the AU, which is going to be seated in Ethiopia, I will ask them, what have you been discussing all along? And yet we Africans, we're still fighting among ourselves. I mean, here's an 8-year-old, sir, who is saying this. He's already a Pan-Africanist. So tell us, what's going through your mind as you think about what happened, what is happening? Let's respond to this young man. What is it that we're going to tell him moving forward?
Dr. FM, it's funny you mentioned going forward what has come out of the conference. As we speak, GIAA has partnered with an organization that brings young Africans here between the age of 18 and 30 to the United States to do internships, paid internships for 2 years. I just came back from DC only last night because we've had all sorts of groups meeting with us. They want to have a piece of the cake. They want to find out how to collaborate with us. The mayor of New York has given us a courtesy visit to come see him in September to discuss further how the city of New York, I don't know if you know, but the city of New York is the 8th largest economy in the world in terms of matching them and equating the city as, with other countries. The city of New York's, it's huge when it comes to, their balance sheet and stuff. So there are other things. We have people just talking about coming to Africa. As I sit with you, I had meetings with African Americans, and it's in the works already, about coming to Africa to settle, to meet their ancestors. As I speak with you, we already have dates for the next year's conference, which is the 17th, 18th, and the 19th of July. And we have already started making plans. We're going to have what we call a pre-conference. It's going to be a carnival / a concert where we're going to have well-known music stars to perform and announce us and bring the conference to another level. As I speak to you, we already have someone who is collaborating with the African Union to see that they fully come to table with us and have discussions on how to move the conversation forward. I can go on and on and on, and I'm back to DC next week for more meetings because of family. I had to come back, take care of a few things, and then I'm going back next week. The United States is busy canceling visas, So we expected a bigger turnout of people, but people were rejected visas because of the current administration in the United States. But still, I do believe that the man upstairs, God, in his infinite orchestration of things, was able to bring the people who needed to be there together to discuss on this point. So we're not going to be any longer that one little non-for-profit on the corner there. We are absorbing more non-for-profits all across the United States and even Africa who want to collaborate with us to move the conversation forward. Kenya has taken a big step in approving visa-free visits for any African born who wants to go to Kenya. You do not need a visa to go to Kenya now for 90 days. These are the things we are talking about. These are the things that Africa needs to start engaging. We are brothers, just like you said. You're African before you're Nigerian or Zimbabwean or South African. So why should I need a visa to go to Zimbabwe? For what? Mm-hmm. If the Western world is asking me to apply for a visa, I understand. But we are Africans before we got divided. So Kenya, thumbs up to President William Ruto for taking that step. And he's joining the big wigs like Ibrahim Traore, like we had in our last discussions. So the conference is really a huge pat in the back for us. There are other collaborations that we're, joining now, which I cannot speak for openly. But things have come out of this conference in a huge way. Talk about businesses that, want to support us and, sponsor us all across Africa. They want to be behind our back to make sure that what we're doing does not fall through. So this is where we are. And, the meetings are going on. People, even though we had just one head of state, but we had the African Union, we had the European Union, and we had the United Nations, and we had representations actually from presidencies who could not make it. I was having a conversations with the Eritrean ambassador to the United States. Eritrea was represented very hugely, and then they invited us to the embassy and they treated us like kings when we went back after the conference. And he told me he narrated a very sad story, which I really was taken aback by. He said something. He said some time ago, the government of Eritrea had $40 million, and they approached the government of Italy to purchase some spare parts. I think it's some agricultural machinery spare parts. They had the money, $40 million ready to transfer to the Italian government. But guess who destroyed the deal? The United States government reached out to the Italian government and said that they should not engage with Eritrea to do business. Eritrea is a sovereign nation. Why in the world should the United States government engage with another government, the Italian government in Europe, telling them who to do business with and who not to do business with? You see, these are some of the things that the African Union should step up and say, no, we're not going to have this. Eritrea is a member of the African Union. And why should the United States step into a deal that has nothing to do with them? We have the money, okay? We're not asking you to give us some kind of loan or to come borrow money from you. So these are the discussions we're having on the table now, saying, no, it's about time, people who are negotiating for Africa step up boldly and go to the African Union and say, hey, you guys are supposed to step up and take responsibility and speak up and have a voice out there for Africa to be respected.
You are absolutely right, sir, and I hear you loud and clear. In fact, when we think about interference from outside, when you think of sovereign states, being told by another sovereign state what to do and what not to do, it makes you wonder to what degree do they see us? Do they see others, like Eritrea in this context, as someone who is able to determine her own future and her own friends? It reminds me of what President, former President, the late Madiba, in South Africa, when he said, and he was speaking in the United States, and he says, we can be friends with anyone in the world. I think there was concern about why South Africa was being friends with Cuba. And he says, we can be friends with anyone. We can be friends with the United States. We can be friends with Russia. We can be friends with Cuba. You don't decide if we are friends. You don't decide who my other friends are going to be. And I thought, wow, that's wisdom, and that's what our relationships should be characterized by. We are old enough to determine our own course and join the table and be part of the dialogue, a discussion, and dialogue to discover, so that we decide what the next steps are. And so it is sad indeed to hear that the dialogue between Eritrea and our friends, the Italians, would have interference from another nation, and you wonder why would you do that? Now, how do you see this as? How do we overcome that? What do you see? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, and I'm just, I know you're a straight shooter, but what comes to your mind? How do we equip one another in such a way that our different African countries are not going to allow another sovereign state, especially if it's outside of Africa? It's one thing if your neighbor, another African country, comes and says, yeah, listen, you know what, let's do this. But to have someone from across the Atlantic, somewhere in Europe, somewhere in Asia, telling you what to do and what not to do, it just complicates relationships.
Yes, what comes to mind. First off, I saw the video of our dear President Robert Mugabe, who was president of Zimbabwe, telling the then Prime Minister of England, you keep your England and let me keep my Zimbabwe. We need to bring back the Robert Mugabes, men who can stand in the front of the so-called world powers and speak truth to power. Secondly, the African Union was created as the OAU, Organization of African Unity, in 1963, after the Pan-African Congress, the PAC, had one of their congresses, I do believe the number 5 or number 6 in London, where you had tendencies like Hastings Kamuzu Banda of Malawi, they call them, the Nyasa land, and someone like W.E.B. Du Bois, people like Jomo Kenyatta, men who stood up for their rights and spoke against colonization. They were fighting for the rights to decolonize Africa and to match, Africans with the same level of financial settlement, to stand in the same position with the rest of the world. And that conference shook up the nations of the world, shook up the whole world. And that was when the OAU was, came into place. And then the African Union, came out of the Organization of African Unity. Those guys were very strong. They knew what they wanted, and they said it exactly the way they wanted to say it. And the world stood up in respect of such men that I just mentioned their names. But somewhere along the line, the African Union has been for lack of a better word, compromised by people with personal interests, personal ambitions. They sit there just for themselves. They do not remember that the people who had gone before them had to pay a price to make sure that the West especially recognize and understand that Africa is one, and that we should speak with one voice, and that Africa is for Africans. Someone like Dr. Arikana Chihomborikwa has spoken many times before that Africa should be for Africans, period. So if the African Union, to answer your question, wants to be respected, even when they appoint ambassadors, especially to the United States, to the United Nations, to the European Union, they need to appoint people with the mindset of Africa should be for Africans. You do not come into Africa and try to dictate to us how we should lead and run ourselves. I can go on and on and on. It's not just Robert Mugabe. Cyril Ramaphosa is doing a very good job now, standing up, to speak against the current administration in the United States, who are doing all sorts of nonsense, trying to divide us between white Africans and black Africans. The current US government went to South Africa and picked and chose white Africans because of skin color and brought them to the United States and gave them straight entry, towards the green card. Meanwhile, there's a number of Africans who are living in war-torn countries who have applied for asylum and they are rejected. They are playing games with their applications. And the same administration that went to South Africa to take white Africans are also, canceling visas of Africans who came to Harvard to study, to get a better education. How do you address that? So these people are not relenting. So we should not relent. We should stand face to face with them and tell them, no, enough is enough. Back in the days, you tried that, but people like GIAA, people like Dr. Arikana, people like PLO Lumumba, and the rest of them, and the African Union especially, should be able to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. We are taking the bull by the horn.
Mm. I hear you, sir. You are, I know you are a straight shooter and you're doing exactly that. To our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining us today. This is your host, Dr. FM, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio, the #1 online radio station, not just about music, but different programs as well. We have programs like mental health, relationships, religion. We talk about youth. We talk about youth and education. There are quite a variety of programs, and Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio provides this opportunity for us to have dialogue on matters pertaining to Africa. And today we are delighted to have His Excellency, Honorable Ambassador Dr. Edward Ilechukwu, who is in the studio with us today. We're talking about the agenda for Africa, the Africa we want, even under the AU and the UN. Whether we like it or not, yes, we know there was the OAU from 1963, and now we have the AU, the African Union. Still, we have other people who try to infiltrate this and change our vision and change our focus. But you are saying enough is enough. This is the Pan-Africanism that we need to stand up for. And thank you for mentioning that, President William Ruto has just said, listen, any African can come to Kenya for 90 days without a visa. And of course, beyond that, hey, listen, tell us what you're trying to do, but you can go there. And that is wonderful. Wouldn't it be wonderful to actually see other African states doing the same thing and just opening up Africa? So when we talk about Africa is open for business, I think this is what it is. And I'm reminded of the words of my namesake, Dr. Francis Kwame Nkrumah, who says, what is the freedom of Ghana if the rest of Africa is not free? when you made reference to, President Hastings Kamuzu Banda, President Jomo Kenyatta, Patrice Lumumba, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, and all these, Therese Kama of Botswana, and all these, who actually studied in England. And I think there must have been a wake-up call, thinking, okay, we're doing this to colonize them, but they went there to study, they remained who they were when they went back. They were fighting for independence. Now, I know someone, I'm not trying to figure out who said it. I think it could have been Mr. Armstrong Williams. When he made his presentation, he said, it takes a lot to attain independence, and it takes a lot to maintain it. And I think when we reflect, words are powerful. Education, I believe, and of course, you being an education guru as well, you understand this. Knowledge is empowering. It's empowerment. When people are equipped with information, they step up and they know who they are. They can speak up. They can stand up for who they are. And I really believe if we embrace that, it took us a lot to gain independence from colonizers. And it's going to take us a lot to be able to maintain our freedom. And I think the direction you're going is not just economics, but it's also mental. We're saying we need to change the way we think. We need to be thinking African, African, African. That's not being selfish. That's just being real. Because everyone, I was actually surprised to find out that in every culture, we put ourselves at the center. And rightly so, because that's where our world begins. But we need to be inclusive. And in our inclusivity, in our attempt to be inclusive, we also need to create a sense of belonging. And other people may not create that space for you to belong. But you are saying, we want other people to know that we belong. And that's why we're rising up and saying what we're saying. And so when you see this, I don't know if it was intentional, but I think the participation of women really resonated with me. I was raised by a single mother who ran away from a very abusive, physically, emotionally, financially abusive relationship. And the presence of women who were speaking out and speaking up was very encouraging, sir. I must tell you that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Most of the time it's dominated by guys. It shouldn't be. So Africa is rising. And so was that intentional or it just happened?
Very intentional. If you remember the award night, and when we were doing the inductees who we were bringing in to work with us as, patrons and other positions that we had there, we had mostly women. Women make things happen. When a woman is engaged in a course, she stays the course. And, so it was intentional in answering your question. But I want to address what you talked about regards to the freedom of movement. The African Continental Free Trade Area is one of the agendas of the, African Union agenda, Africa We Want. And, trade between people of African descent in different countries. Free movement. I know we addressed this in the first interview, so I'm going to ask that the listeners go and listen to that. Because of time, I don't want to take your time to delve deeply into that. But it's actually all over the internet. If you Google, African Continental Free Trade Area, you go there and read what the African Union agenda is all about. And they're giving themselves, when it's going to be 100 years, AU is going to be 100 years. They're going to look back and say, wow, we've been able to achieve what we had in mind. If you remember, President Musonton, president of St. Martin's, during his speech, I felt a tear, dropping from my eye, because he was addressing Africa literally. He said, Africa, we who are in the diaspora are waiting for you. We are waiting for you to take the lead. We are ready to join forces with you. And that's one of the reasons we gave him the award. We gave him as the most, I don't remember what he was, the most something leader in Africa. His country is not in the African continent. We recognized him based on how he positioned himself and asking Africa to join forces with him to lift up Africans. People literally came to us in tears, crying, telling us, look at what you have put together. I tried to take the backstage and allow the two younger ones to just do their thing, but I couldn't. I don't think I succeeded enough. They found out I was also a co-founder, and they began to come to me to discuss and want to find out how far we want to go, if there's any way we need help and all that. I'm really excited and upbeat. You can hear it from my voice that, the sky is not even our limit. As I was telling you, even up until this morning, people are calling to find out how they can get involved with GIAA. So Africa needs to rise up and take what belongs to it. We have been sitting down on the sidelines for too long and just allowing everybody to come and rape. Yes, I used that word, rape us. It's been happening for too long. It's time for us to stand up and say, hey, this is what we want. This is how we want it. It's either you play by our rules or we're not ready to engage. Why? Because Africa does not need the world. The world needs Africa, obviously. In the last discussion I had with you, I said a lot of people do not know that over 80% of the world's wealth is in Africa. Domiciled there, given to us by the merciful Creator. And the human race actually started from Africa. So it's only us that don't know that we are the wealthiest continent. Every other person knows. Every other person wants a big bite of the big apple. Like I told you, Africa is the big apple and not New York City. Okay. So we have people, from Asia, from the United States, from the Middle East, from Australia, coming in to see how they can be part of what is going on. Because there was a lady there, with Caucasian descent who was very upset with us. She said, how do you have such a beautiful thing and I have all the African Union ambassadors in my hand? Why didn't you approach me? I said, well, we didn't know who you were. She said next year she's going to make sure that all are represented, all of them. She has the clout. We have one other person who lives in the DC area. I'm not going to mention his name. When he has an event in his backyard, 10 presidents show up. 10. He has agreed to work with us in the collab. So where we are going, it's only God that can stop us. If not, no force whatsoever. No human person can be able to stop where we're going. And we're doing all this just to make sure that the voice of Africa and Africans is heard, Dr. Mpindu.
This is exciting, sir. Thank you so much for being so current, so articulate on what is happening, what has happened. And like I said, with reference to the caliber of people who were there, I just say to myself, this is amazing. This is a power to reckon with. And the world ain't seen nothing yet, because a fire is burning. When we think of younger presidents standing up and saying enough is enough, we need to do A, B, C, D. no one is going to stop us. I like what you said. You know, the sky is not even the limit. We need to think beyond. We need to think without boxes, outside of the box and without boxes. And I'm glad to hear you say that it was intentional to have a female there. I mean, you just made reference to the female who actually said, "Oh, we can make sure that these ambassadors come." I
Yes,
mean,
and Dr. F, I'm sorry to cut you, but when we as believers, when we go back to the creation, after God made Adam, he looked at it. He said it was beautiful, but he now came back and said it is not good for a man, to be alone. It is not good for a man to be alone. So he had his reasons for that.
I'm glad you're saying that, and I hope my significant other will listen to this.
And it's important for us to begin to engage our better halves and start having these discussions, our daughters, and make
Yes.
them understand that it's not just the men that should be in the forefront. I can mention a whole number of African women from Mali to a couple of other places who fought for their nations, to come to the limelight. And I want to use this medium, if you don't mind, to appeal to the leaders of
Definitely.
governments in Africa to begin to. It looks like, I believe it was Liberia, the former president. Was it Liberia? That was a woman, Johnson.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
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 Joyce Banda, who is actually currently running again to become president of Malawi. She's going back. Her daughter is running to be a House of Representatives. So I am appealing to the African government and to the African Union. I know that they have tried to make sure that African Union ambassador to the United States is always a woman.
Mm.
Women can do it even better than us. They are very passionate about what they do. So African governments who are going to hear me, who are hearing me now, please let us engage the blessings of femininity.
Amen.
Women who have been empowered by God. In Tanzania, I believe is also a woman that is the president.
Yes.
It needs to spread all across Africa.
And Namibia.
And Namibia, it needs to spread all across Africa. All these men stuff is enough. We have tried. It's time for women to come on board and lead the way, literally, and lead the way. It's not impossible. So I'm appealing to the African leaders. Please, let's start engaging women and let's bring them to positions of power, whether it be ministers and secretaries and in government houses, ambassadors to different countries around the world from Africa. And I can bet you that they will do a better job than we think they can.
That is powerful, sir. You're absolutely right. And thank you for begging our leaders to think along those lines. And you are right on the money. You're right on the money. Now, talking about that, sir, I'm also aware that you have been instrumental in reaching out to girls. You know, we have two girls of our own, and obviously three sons. But I shouldn't say obviously, because some people don't have three sons anyway, and three sons, blessed with three sons. You reached out to these girls when they were abducted. I mean, I know that's a very sensitive matter, and you do some things that don't even hit the headlines because of the nature of the work that you do, and I respect that. And I certainly don't want us to go beyond anything that would jeopardize the work that you do. But we have an understanding within this part of that part of the world, in Nigeria, where Western education, Western knowledge, Western culture is forbidden. It's anathema. It's a disgrace, according to them. But you are saying the girl child is important. Now, I'm picking on this because you said that it's important that our leaders understand and embrace the grace, the blessings attached to coexisting male and female. We're not saying we want to be unisex. We're not saying men and women are the same. No, we are different, but we are co-equals in terms of what we can do. Obviously, there are some things that God created women to have, which men do not have, and vice versa. But you're doing this for the girl child. Would you like to comment a little more in terms of why are you doing this? I know it just wasn't because of that time, but you have continued to do this. So why is this something of importance to you as one of our transformational leaders on the continent of Africa?
Dr. FM, I thank you for bringing that up. I called it, and I still call it, the Hydra-headed monster. Talking about Western education is forbidden, which is literally what Boko Haram means. I have 4 girls of my own, and my dear mother was a professor in the university before she graduated. She came from nothing, literally nothing. And so when we had the issue of girls being kidnapped for the sole reason of, that they want to go to school. They just want to go to school, just like boys to go to school. And they were kidnapped and subjected to the worst circumstances whatsoever, as if they committed a crime. The only crime they committed was that they want to go to school. So that was in 2014, around April. So I sat back because I know what education has done for me. Education opens doors for you, puts you on a totally different pedestal, takes you into places where money cannot take you into. So I said, you know what, I'm going to, link up with people of like minds, and we're going to find a way to, fight against this nonsensical opinion that women should not go to school. There was absolutely no way we could fight them with weapons, but education is the greatest weapon, according to our dear beloved father, Nelson Mandela, that anyone could use to advance themselves in life. So we floated an organization called the Global Initiative for the Education and Literacy of African Girls, and the website is www.giftedafricangirls.org. www.giftedafricangirls.org. Again, is Global Initiative for the Education and Literacy of African Girls. If you compare it to GIAA also has a global initiative. So, so we've been working. What have we been doing so far? We have ambassadors all over the globe. We have been advocating, speaking out at international conferences on platforms to showcase. And people were like, oh, why did you just make it for Africa? Come to India, come to China. Girls need to go to school. I don't remember her name, but the lady that was shot in the head in Pakistan because she was also speaking out for education of girls. I do not remember her name. So yes, it has become important for organizations like mine and other organizations to start looking at the education of girls. And I tell people, you ask me a question, why did we get involved in that apart from the kidnap? And I ask people, can you imagine if Oprah Winfrey did not go to school, Hillary Clinton, Joyce Banda, the president of Tanzania, Namibia, a couple of others who are changing their world. They don't see themselves as females anymore, so to speak. They see themselves as change agents who have something to offer. They just do not belong in the kitchen and in the other room, like our former president who just died in England shamefully alluded to when he said women belong in the kitchen and in the other room. In other words, he's saying, oh, they are home keepers. They are just there to bear children. No. And we are saying that it is beyond that. Yes, they are homekeepers, they bear children, with their husbands and all that. But also they have a calling to be change agents, like I said a few minutes ago. If we can do it, why not women? So I still sit as the CEO and president and founder of Gifted. That is what it's called for short, Gifted. And I keep speaking out and advocating. Long term, we're looking at if our resources can, help us build schools for girls only that are tuition free. We have already partnered with some schools in Africa, but we're now waiting for resources to be able to actually build out schools to have girls go to school, so that way they don't have to wait and sit aside and wait for the boys to finish school before we can actually consider to see if we can send them to school or not. Look at the Honorable Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is a Nigerian woman, a professor who I know personally, because we were in the same university environment growing up. And look at her, position today as the Director General of that organization. What if she did not go to school? And she is doing a wonderful and fantastic job, not just as a woman, but as an African woman, African born and raised. Look at someone like Dr. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, who I grew up with, who I also know personally. I can go on and on and on. So when we give men the opportunity, women also deserve to have an equal opportunity, so that they can make a statement and tell us where they're coming from and where their mind is when it comes to national and international issues. So I totally agree with you, Dr. FM.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ilechukwu. It's good to have you on the team, sir. I know that you are very passionate when it comes to Africa, and I think one of the things that has drawn me to you, for your information, is the fact that you are very Pan-Africanist. You don't just hang around people from your part of the world in Africa, your region, but you have friends from all over. And the fact that you are a pragmatist, you are someone who is down to earth, you are very, very practical. And I like to hang around people like that, like you, because you inspire me, you help me to see beyond myself. And I really mean that. And given this connection we have and your influence in the world, we want to continue to create opportunities for us, for people like yourself. And this is why I'm so grateful to Love the Afrobeat Music Talk Radio that creates opportunities like this, to have these discussions with people like you, so that people out there, Africans and non-Africans, know what is going on and what we're thinking and what we're expecting. And they appreciate who we are. Actually, yesterday I was speaking to my significant other, and we were talking about we have to be careful that we're not living our lives in reaction to other people. Like, we can't be so mad about how other people have treated us. Now we want to show them that we can do something and we are somebody. That's just giving other people too much power. And we can't do that. We're too special. We're too blessed to give someone that kind of power. But at the same time, we need to be analytical. We need to look at our situation. We need to look at why we do certain things. And I think this is one of the things I picked up from the forum. Let's be self-analytical. Let's look at what we're doing. Why are we doing it? What do we plan to do, and why do we plan to do it? And sort of have healthy approaches to what we are doing, so that we are not reacting to other people. I know there are some people who have, different perspectives on colonization. Yes, colonization, we know it was brutal, it was violent, in its nature, that's who it is. It dehumanizes the other person. But there were some things that have emerged out of that have made us better people, because we have taken a step beyond where we were left. When I think of people like yourselves with a permanent head damage, I was talking to some people, and they said, "You said what?" And I said, "Yeah, we have some people with permanent head damage, PhD." And I said that it's interesting how some of our brothers and sisters have risen up in these circles to be able to say, we can interact, let's have conversations, because I really believe that conversations are going to help us to the next level. We can't be yelling. When people are yelling at each other, in conflict, in alternative dispute and conflict resolution, we say, once you start yelling at each other, nobody's listening. So you might as well just shut up, because, you're just getting all worked up, but not accomplishing anything. But in dialogue, we certainly will. And you created that dialogue at the AAEF, the African Ambassadors Economic Forum, where you wanted people to dialogue. And those kinds of dialogues, I kind of felt like, should it have been 3 days or 5 days?
Oh wow! You just took it away from my because time to us, and they were saying, "Oh wow, this is supposed to be like a 1 week thing," because of time. We did not give the panelists enough time to express themselves. Why should we bring people together and not give them enough time to, But Dr. FM, by next year, by the grace of God, the Almighty God that you and I reverence, it's going to be more than 2 days. We're looking at 3 days. So, but the carnival that I spoke about and the concert is going to be a week before that, the weekend before that. And then the week preceding to the conference, there's going to be a lot of side events. And so the conference is more like going to be a week now, especially for people who are not going to be able to attend because of conflicts with the date.
Yeah.
So we're saying that, okay, we're going to have the pre-conference, and then you come in and make a presentation within the week if you're not going to be able to attend the conference. So that way we know we carry everybody along. You have to use wisdom in making sure that you harness, everybody's energy so that they can contribute, positively to what we're trying to do. So yes, so I don't want to take your time because I know we've been here for an hour, but that is exactly what we're looking to do.
Dr. Ilechukwu, this is really wonderful having this conversation with you, and thank you for the opportunity to dialogue with you as we have been talking about achieving the Africa we want under the African Union agenda. Now, tell us, as we near the end of our time here, what are some of the challenges that you could be having? And I know, sir, that there are some political, administrative nuances in this, and we certainly remain apolitical as Afrobeat, as Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We don't want to meddle with anyone's politics, but feel free to let us know what could be some of the challenges that are happening or you foresee as far as achieving the Africa we want under the African Union agenda. And I'm saying this to you, Dr. Ilechukwu, because I know that you hold key positions in these organizations, but feel free to share with us what you see and what you would like to share with us so that we have a better understanding of some of the things that you are facing. I know we have a lot of things to celebrate and be excited about, but there are some challenges that you could be facing. So feel free to share with us, sir, as we come to the end of our time together today.
Right, Dr. FM. Some of them I already mentioned, with visa issues with the government of the United States. And that's why it's very critical in the next 3 years, as this government persists, that we collaborate very well and fully with the African Union, so that they can have a bat, so we wouldn't have the kind of issues we had with people paying fees and going to the embassies, and their visa fees are not refundable, and they're not getting visas to attend such a conference, so they were forced to watch online. That's the one of the major challenges that we faced in organizing and bringing to the conference to a success. Eventually, like I said, we still had a number of people who watched online, and we were able to have them get information on what the discussions were about. So it boils down to the African Union coming together and saying, hey, GIAA is doing wonders, for lack of a better word. Let us find a way to use them as a channel to speak to the world and collaborate and partner with them, so that the world will hear the voice of young men and women who are coming from Africa. Also, some of the other challenges we had, we are having meetings and discussing already to streamline them, technology wise, and resources that we needed to channel to certain areas. So I do believe that with the support of the African Union again, and with partnership with the European Union and the United Nations, I have partnered with my organization, Gifted, the Girl Child Education Organization, with the UN Women, United Nations Women. We have partnered very closely. They have been very gracious to us in making donations and computer equipment in the last year or two. So challenges that we faced in this conference, I do believe that now that we're addressing it, we will not have those challenges anymore, or at least it's not going to be as much as we had it. Other ones I'm not going to be able to mention here, which is political and all that. When two people gather, even if it's two people, there always will be politics, So, but we're addressing it, and we're asking God to give us wisdom to be able to sit together, and to the people who have gone before us, so they could see reason why we gather. But well, by next year we should be able to have everybody come together and move the conversation forward. But I do thank you so much for the interview, and also for attending the conference as a delegate and a speaker, and for putting your hands on the plow with us, Dr. FM, to move the conversation forward. Thank you very, very much for having me.
Dr. Ilechukwu, sir, it's always a pleasure to have you. And like we have said before, we will have you back. And that's not a threat, it's a promise, because we know that what you have started is a movement. And so there will definitely be times that we will be looking for updates. So we know where to find you, sir. So we'll be knocking on your door. But thank you so much for being with us. And it's always a pleasure to have conversations with people who are Pan-Africanist at heart, in mind, in behavior, in lifestyle. I know that you go to Africa regularly. You're not one of those who goes on vacation. You go to work. You go home. I say the same about myself. When I go to Africa, I'm not a visitor. I'm not visiting. I'm going home. So it's a real pleasure to have you, and thank you for joining us today in this part 2 of Achieving the Africa That We Want. And you again have done a superb job. And to our viewers, our listenership around the world, this has been your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, your host. And thank you for joining us here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. The #1 African and Caribbean online radio with various shows and music genres 24/7. Like I said, we have all kinds of programs 24/7. In fact, what I do now is if I am at home, I will have the Love Bay Afrobeat music in the music channel in the background. They're playing songs or something is happening, and I just listen in as I go about my work. So please, if you have not yet subscribed, please do that and share the channel within your own networks so that other people get to know about this. And you can also go online and you can share some of our podcasts, including this one. It'll be available right after we are done. And you can also share that with others as well. Let's spread the word. And again, this has been your host, Dr. FM, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. And thank you for being with us today. And by the way, coming up at 1 p.m. is the Caribbean Flavor with Mr. Marcus and Miss Gentle Blue. You don't want to miss that. So let's keep on keeping on and doing the right things. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, the time is always right to do the right thing. So let's stand up and be a voice of hope and encouragement to others. There's a lot of discouraging things happening in the world. Let's be voices of hope to others in your own family, in your neighborhood, in your own community, in your nation, and around the world. Again, thank you for being with us. God bless you. We'll see you next week.